Hey everyone, it's Tabria back with another delectable episode of Milk Drunk. You guys know that I'm a model, so it's no surprise that I love fashion, which is why I'm super excited for our guest today because she's an expert. She loves fashion even more than I do. Erin Walsh is one of the top award-winning fashion stylists in the industry, whose roster of A-list clients include names like Anne Hathaway and Selena Gomez. Erin is deeply passionate about guiding people to their best self in style and is a vocal advocate for body positivity. In addition to her recent recognition as the Daily Front Row Style Curator of the Year, Erin is also a creator, fashion entrepreneur, and mom of 3 of the best-dressed children I've ever seen in my life. Welcome to Milk Drunk, Erin, and congratulations on your recent award. Oh my gosh.
I love that intro, by the way.
I know.
Thank you. I like the best-dressed children. That was a surprise in there. I don't know if I would go that far, but I'll take it.
Hey, they are pretty stylish. They have to be, being your kids.
I think they're very opinionated, which I like to see. My daughter is the oldest. She's 9, Matilda, and she basically refuses to let me dress her, direct her in any way with her clothes. And she kind of is like anti-fashion in the sense that she said to me yesterday, like, Mama, I know you like wearing dresses, but I really like wearing shorts and t-shirts more. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Yeah. Whereas Jude is 6 and he's basically Beck reincarnate and already a rocker and likes to wear a suit. If he knows we're going out to dinner, he wants to put on a velvet blazer and matching pants.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I love how your daughter's like, I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
I know. It's so funny. Kids just aren't impressed by parents, It's
a good equalizer.
Yeah, it is. It is. It keeps you grounded.
They because of what I do. My husband is a photographer, a fashion photographer and celebrity too. So we're around this stuff, this world all the time, and they've been in and out of fittings and photo shoots their whole lives and offering opinions too in that process. But for themselves, I try to just not direct and
that's really
observe.
cool. I can't wait till my daughter's old enough to,
oh my God,
speak to me and voice her opinions and everything.
But it's also really fun when she can't.
Oh, I know. I mean, no, totally.
Now she's your baby doll.
I know. But we're going to talk about all things fashion. Yeah. But like you said, you have 3 kids. And what are their ages again?
Matilda is 9. She turned 9 about a week ago. Jude is 6.5. And Hugo is 2.5.
Oh my gosh.
I can't believe I'm sitting here talking about that I have 3 kids, by the way. Wow. Okay.
I remember my birth like it was just yesterday. My daughter, she just turned 9 months. But as your kids get older, do you still feel like that?
I think time is, when you have children, you become so wildly aware of time. When I became pregnant the first time, a client told me, she was like, now you're jumping in the river of life. You sort of lose your sense of time, your control of time. It's happening whether you like it or not. Because when you're watching little people grow up in front of you, you just become very acutely aware of the passage of time and the preciousness of it. Do you mean in terms of when they were born and what that was like?
Like what your labors were like?
Well, it's funny. People say you forget. I remember each writhing posture and what my husband said and the after. Yeah, you tell me how much you want to know. I can go there.
I mean, well,
I remember. And each one was very different.
Yes, I'm always curious how pregnancies differ and deliveries differ from each one. Were there things that were totally unexpected to you between the 3?
Think I'm a working stylist. I am freelance and inherently given what I do. So with each one of my kids, I was never given any time off.
Right.
I was working until the end on my feet, probably far too much.
Yeah.
And I think in each case, my body had never really gotten to the relax mode, to get ready for the labor. So I was pretty tense. And with each baby, I was so ready. I was so tired. And with the first one, my doctor had scheduled me to be induced on my due date because her daughter was graduating from college. And she was like, let's just do this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of the realities of when you get Pitocin, how severe the contractions become. And I had decided to get pain medication with that one, but then they had to take it away because my labor wasn't progressing. So it was this very,
oh my gosh,
very painful, aggressive, long labor. So that was Matilda. And that took a long time.
Yeah.
And then with Jude, he was born 3 weeks early, but I had been having contractions for like months, again, because I think I wasn't resting enough. And so I kind of like always thought I was in labor. And then about 3 weeks before he was born, I went to the hospital, and my doctor, I was like having contractions, but she could have stopped it. And she was like, honestly, like, you can do this. Like, so they gave me Pitocin for that one again. But that one, the nurse had come in and given me like too much of the pain meds, like when I was far too close to like be ready to deliver the baby.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty out of it with him. Like I felt good. Like, that was totally fine. My mom was there, and she was like, I've never seen someone so like, you didn't make one sound. I'm like, yeah, that was pretty weird.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
And then Hugo that was more complicated because I was during COVID, and like having a baby then was so, even like I didn't wear a mask when I delivered or anything, but like all the nurses and your doctors, like, and all those protocols, it was really intense. And same with him. It was like my body didn't want to let go. And like each one of my kids, they broke my water for me. It was all not what I wanted to do. I always wanted to have the natural, no pain meds. I had gotten a doula who was fantastic with Hugo, who I thought I was going to do it natural. And then I just I was too scared.
Yeah. I mean, it's scary.
Yeah.
I had a home birth, and
oh my God, bless you. That's so cool.
I mean, trust me, I wanted to go to the hospital, but I was just I was fully dilated. There was no time to get there. But yeah, it's scary.
Like, I guess we're doing
it. Because in the moment, like, you just don't know how long it's going to last. And that's all I was thinking about, the control freak that I am. Maybe I can do an hour more of this, but will it be 8 more hours? 10 more? You never know. But it ended up working out.
It's such a thing, though, because like to grow, you have to let go. You have to, to evolve. You can't control everything, like, because then you'll just, when you're controlling, you're stuck in the same place. And I think that's such a big lesson that you learn as a parent. You can't control them. They are who they are, and they're changing, and they make you change.
Yes, that's hands down been the biggest lesson I've learned as a parent. Even just being in a relationship, because this is like my first serious relationship.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful.
I can't control his life. Right. I can't control everything that's going on in our home and our little ecosystem. So yeah, it's a work in progress.
What did somebody, like, before you gave birth, what do you think was the most powerful piece of advice that you were given?
My midwife told me, because I saw my midwife and OBs concurrently. My doctors were nice. They're great. But they told me I'd probably have to have a C-section because of the size of my baby.
Wow.
And so it was just really drilled into my head, like, okay, I know you're trying to do the home birth thing, but this is probably going to be your reality.
Right.
And so, I brought that concern to my midwife, and they were like, Tabria, God wouldn't give you a baby your body couldn't handle.
Oh, I love your midwife.
And I was like, okay, you're right. I'm trusting that. I'm trusting you. I mean, obviously she had like 30 years of experience.
Right.
And I did have a big baby. She was 10 pounds, but I could handle it. I was able to do it.
Because I haven't talked about this much publicly, and it's something that really bothered me when I became a parent, because before I had my daughter, we were pregnant. I was 20 weeks pregnant and found out there was all these deformities in brain, heart, etc.
Yeah.
And so we spoke with the doctor, and we came to the decision that I would have to terminate the pregnancy. And so we did, but there was like some basic realities of that and options that were never presented to me. Like, I was never given the option, like, do you want to deliver this baby and like say goodbye? I didn't know that it would just he would just be gone. And I remember too, like, in speaking with my doctor after, like, the conversation, it was just like, oh, like, so you have to wait like 6 weeks before you try again. And I was just like, but am I okay?
Yeah.
Like, it was, and I feel like the conversation around those kinds of things isn't, I don't know, it felt like such a crazy, and that was another time too, like I've talked about going back to work after having kids, but going back to work after that it's like, am I allowed to act like anything happened?
Yeah. That's very valid.
It was really confusing, and I think like for women, it'd be so nice if there was like more conversation around that. Like during loss, like information would have been so helpful to me to make a more because of that reality, I never named that baby, you know? And yeah, I just think it would have been nice to know.
I've never experienced that, but I'm surprised there isn't more empathy from the physicians surrounding that.
Well, do you know what's really funny too? So there was like total coldness after and like lack of direction before. But then the weird thing was the doctor who helped me through that, she was like sobbing before, like telling me what was going to happen. And I was like, if there's one time I need you to keep it together, girl.
Oh my
like
right,
Chris,
now.
My husband is Swedish. And after he was like, that wasn't cool. Like she shouldn't, because I don't know. Anyways, the layers of it, it was like, so that happened.
Oh
then
my
like
gosh.
no response. Oh, and then the other thing too, that floored me was, so 2 days later, my milk comes in and nobody told me that was going to happen. And,
oh my God.
And I called my doctor and she was like surprised. And she was like, oh yeah, you should put try some frozen peas in a sports bra. And I was just like, why didn't you tell me? Like this feels like betrayal or something.
I mean, that's an emotional roller coaster in and of itself, but I don't understand how she can go from sobbing, before and then just being so like cold and isolating after. But there totally needs to be like, I don't know, grief counseling or something like in place that
grief and facts, because to grieve, you need to know what your options are.
Yeah, exactly.
I related so much watching what Chrissy Teigen and John Legend went through because it was like similar timeline.
Yeah.
And I saw like at that time, like they were very open and shared very bravely what they had gone through and how. But I remember seeing that how it happened, and I was like, wait, why wasn't that? And this was so many years later. I was like, why wasn't that presented to me as an option?
Yeah.
Anyways, I just thought it was worth bringing up.
No, it is. I mean, it can't be a lack of knowledge, like this is your job.
Right.
So you know what these people are experiencing. I don't know. I feel like physicians can just be too methodical sometimes, and probably, maybe she felt that she was out of line initially expressing those emotions and detached afterwards.
Do you know what's interesting too? I was reading about, especially in the States, like the statistics of women who are like forced into birth control. I think this was in the New York Times like a week ago, where a lot of times, so like in certain, especially like women of color, like they'll just tell them like, oh, we'll give you an IUD like upon delivery, like it's like forced birth control effectively. And it's that thing with patient doctor where you want to trust, and if it seems like they're the one in control.
Totally.
But information gives you power.
Exactly. So. I mean, it's definitely manipulative.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
And there's so much crazy legislation surrounding,
oh my God, the world
women's rights and everything. I don't know what to do about it. I just talk to people about it and hope for the best, but it's really sad. Switching gears, I wanted to ask, how did you get into styling?
Totally by accident.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. I wanted to be an actor.
Oh.
Like, I loved it. I went to theater school. I went to NYU for drama.
Oh, cool.
Conservatory training. And I graduated, and they didn't really teach you how to be in the business. And, there wasn't like Instagram wasn't around. This is like early 2000s. And I met with like a couple agents, and I just like panicked. I think in life you have two reactions to things, like fear or love. And like, and love is like what opens you up to grow. When you fear something, you shut down, and that like stops it. But I had like a visceral like, oh my God, I can't. It was a control thing too, because I saw myself like not being successful in 10 years, or like maybe having to wait tables at the same time for 10 years and not having a certain path to success. And I was just like, no, that's not for me. I can't do that. And I always loved fashion. I always like, even acting, I always was involved in the costumes. And as a little girl, like my mom and my grandmother loved clothes and were always very fashionable. And I even as a kid, I would like lay in bed like thinking of outfits, which sounds so weird, but I would. So in any case, I was like, oh, well, I'll work in a store. Maybe I'll write for a magazine. And I was writing at the same time anyways. And I worked in a store. I worked in PR for a second and hated it. And then I was like, well, I can write for a magazine. So maybe I started temping at Condé Nast and within a month, there was an opening of Vogue and it was in the fashion department. And I was like, well, maybe if I work in the fashion department, I can transfer into the features department and get writing where I really want to be. And then like one of the first days I was there, I was with the editor who'd been at Vogue longer than Anna. Like she'd been there the longest. And our first photo shoot was with Irving Penn, who, do you know who that is? And you go to photo shoots now, there's noise everywhere. You're getting every single kind of deliverable and social media and all of it. But his studio, it was like a church. There was no music. It was quiet. And you would do like 1 or 2 shots a day and have like a long break for lunch. And it was film. And I was just like blown away. And I don't know, it felt like I could feel it in my soul, which sounds lofty. But I think if you don't bring the loftiness to even like the commerce, like then what's the freaking point? But yeah, I could feel it. I was like, oh, this feels really good. And it was still and it was calm. And I knew that it made sense. So I would like spend all this extra time in the Condé Nast library and just like researching and that's how I got started. And I was an assistant for years. And then I was very itchy to do my own thing. So I did that.
That's really cool. Wow. I didn't even aspire to be a model either. Just kind of happened. Yeah, my friend entered me into a modeling contest and boom, that's how it happened.
Gosh,
yeah, I know. It's so crazy.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's really cool. People ask me all the time, how do you get into modeling like today? What would your advice be? And I really don't know. Like there's modeling contests and you can submit to agencies still, which is like the traditional way of doing it. But with social media, everything has just changed.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Much. So if someone were to ask you, how do I get into styling? How do I get into the fashion industry? What would your advice be?
I think, look, the industry is even changing so quickly every day. But my advice would be like, I think a lot of people want to skip to the end. And I all the time hire people who intern for me. I think you have to be willing to get your hands dirty in the same way that I'm willing to get my hands dirty every day for work too. You learn in the doing. So like if I wanted to say be a stylist, which even the definition of that changes, is changing now too. But if I wanted to like get some experience, I would reach out to like agencies that represent stylists and ask to intern. And then you will get hired. If people like you on set or they like you in their office, they're going to hire you.
Yeah.
It's like the yes end of it. Because I mean, I've told this story before, but my first giant celebrity client was Kerry Washington, and I met her because I agreed to clean her closet. One of my favorite people in the world, who's client, she always tells me to like see like the 3D chess of it. So like if you say yes to this, like 3 steps down the line, where does that go? Or that way, or that way, or that way. Don't be afraid of the possibilities because you can always, it's like you think like an editor anyways, so you can always edit it back down after.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I also, this is random again, but there's also not just like styling clothes. Like when I see prop styling and like set dressing, set design, and obviously, you know, if you're interested in fashion, try and pursue that. But I always tell people, you know, try all the avenues and just see what sticks because
what feels good.
Yeah, maybe modeling doesn't work, but maybe being a content creator could lead to something, or going the talent route and signing with a commercial agency, or even doing fit modeling. Like that could lead to a job down the line, you know?
Well, and there's so many jobs we don't know of as technology and media is evolving.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like kids, like my daughter and my son, they'll be like, they already talk about what they want to be when they grow up. And I keep saying to them, okay, but you don't have to be one thing. You can be many things. And maybe you want to be this now, but maybe that will change. And because I just want them to stay open to possibility.
Yeah, I agree. Switching gears, something I thought was funny that I saw you do, you wore heels, some Manolo heels home from the hospital after your delivery.
After each one.
Yeah, that's insane to me.
No, it was a choice. So when I had Matilda, we lived in New York. First 2 I had in New York. And I had worn these shoes. They were blue. The Manolo, what's the name of this style? It has the buckle on it. It's the Sex and the City shoe. I worked with Sarah Jessica at the time. And I just remember thinking, like, I want to feel fucking classy. Like, but we weren't walking. I'm like in the wheelchair. And like the nurses were like, oh, like it was a thing. And they liked it. They said, I think you're the first one to do that. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
So fabulous.
And not because I thought I was so important. It was just like, but it is that idea, and I believe this with fashion and choices like that. And you remember moments by how you feel during them. So if I don't know, I like the idea of being an elegant mom who has it together.
I love that.
Don't always feel that way.
Yes, but it definitely helps. You know, I remember when Rihanna was pregnant, and everybody was talking about her fashion, you know, during pregnancy, and I thought that was so cool, and it was really inspiring, not only to me, but to a lot of, women, pregnant people. You don't have to hide yourself just because you're pregnant,
It's there's this breathwork person I saw, and he was explaining to me, because I talked to him about like how my body was like being pregnant, and I actually like being pregnant, that feeling of like taking up more space with your body. But he was like, one of the reasons you like it is it forces you to have your heart more open. I think especially as working women, we get in the habit of facing forward and like the energy of doing. But in pregnancy, you feel most peaceful when you surrender and you try to be more effortless.
Yes.
And he's like, that's why you like it. And so I started trying to apply that to my life and to the way I do things, to apply that energy of like being at peace in a situation, at peace in a conflict, at peace in confusion, at peace as a parent.
Yeah.
So like if my kids are scared or confused or angry or agitated, I try to like surrender and sit in it. And I find that like, because we're mirrors of each other, they come down too.
Yeah.
And the more you do it, the more it feels more natural. And now my kids will say things to me that reflect that. And I'm like, you're so wise.
You're so wise.
It's funny. You'll love it when yours gets older and
I
you
can't
can
wait.
Converse.
Do you think your style has changed as a result of being a mom?
It's so funny. So I was wearing this outfit, this white pants outfit. I did a shoot with Selma Blair for Glamour last year. And she's a mom too. And she was like, you have kids, right? She's like, how do you wear that? She's like, if I wear that, I would be dirty in like an hour or like in 8 minutes. So what I wear as a parent, I am trying to like harness that calm and that peace and that serenity and elegance. So it tends to be a lot of white, a lot of things that feel, even if I'm tired or exhausted or burnt out or frustrated, that help me harness that person, that woman that I know is inside of me, that I want to help other people be inspired by, so that I can be that light. So I wear a lot of white, or if I'm in New York, I tend to wear a lot of black to like ward off all the intense energy. It's weird when I pack for New York, there always is a lot of black. And did I have like mountains of like baby vomit like puked on me? I'm not sure. I did find during COVID, like when we moved here and when I became pregnant again, I got in the habit, because like right now our days are structured with work and with kids and everything. I would change at different times during the day, even when there was no work to be done, to just kind of demarcate it. And like put on a dress in the evening to make dinner. It sounds so like housewife, but there was something that made me feel like I was still living that dream. I don't know.
No, I definitely
like
relate
honoring
to
that person I want to be.
Yeah, because I'm certainly not as fashionable as you are. But
you look pretty great over there.
Well, thank you. This was a 2-second decision, but I definitely want to. I don't want to say take fashion more seriously, but I want to play with it more.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been kind of challenging navigating like, how do I dress as a mom? Like, do I need to present myself differently? And I know I don't need to.
You don't.
I know that.
Yeah.
But, I still am self-conscious about how I'll be received by people now that I am a mother. But
I guess the easiest way to think about it, and a mom is one thing you have to remember that. But that depends on the room you're in. If you're going to something for preschool later, or you're meeting with some moms, maybe you want to look like the responsible mom, and that's a certain vibe.
Yeah.
But it's all centered around like, how do I want to feel in this room?
Yeah.
How do I want to remember being in this room? And you remember where you are and what you're wearing because of how it made you feel. Whether that made you feel strong or powerful or responsible, or you had it together when maybe you weren't feeling like you did.
Yeah.
And if you can learn how to pick what you wear so that it gets you there, it makes all the rest of it much easier.
I love that. I think fashion is definitely more, I don't know the word, but it sounds very trivial. I feel like everything in this industry just sounds very trivial, but it can have a lot of impact.
It can. It all can. And that's like the secret to all of this is like, of course you could make fashion trivial. And maybe it even is. But what if you actually took it and you looked at it through a lens and you used it in a way that it wasn't? Because everything that we do and everything that we're around can have an intention if we let it.
Yeah.
And if you look to find the ways to like thread that intention or that purpose into every single thing you do, it makes the fashion, it makes the food, it makes the walking down, any of driving. It makes it all in line with telling the story you want to tell of the person you want to be in this life.
Totally. Whenever I feel like that, like, oh my gosh, this is so meaningless, you know?
Oh, I hope you don't feel like that.
I get back to it. I come back.
Oh.
But I always think, I get a lot of DMs from girls and women who say that they look up to me for, you know, being a plus size model and unapologetic and all this other stuff. But, you know, it does impact people, you know, it can make a difference.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always just like come back to that. But yeah.
I mean, you're using your platform in a way that impacts people for good. So what can be better than that?
Yeah, exactly. So that makes it much more enjoyable for me and to like find the purpose in
your daughter will watch you do that too.
Yeah. With your pregnant clients, like, did you approach them any differently when dressing them?
I've had so many. Carrie was pregnant twice when we worked together.
Oh, yeah.
Aunt Annie was pregnant.
Yeah.
Adriana was with someone yesterday. I can't tell you they're pregnant. Who else? So many. So many pregnant women. And I think the thing, like both having been a pregnant person and having compassion for pregnant women, you're like not in your body. So, and you're feeling very, very vulnerable. So you want to help put things that, yes, make them feel empowered, but also make them feel safe and beautiful and not like, and supported. Like you want clothes that support you, not just in like a logistical boobs or whatever kind of way, but in a, you're emotionally watery. So like what makes you feel the most supported version of yourself?
Yeah.
And think there's that goes from color to texture. If you look back in the day, like they would dress pregnant women like, you know, little girls, like totally desexualized, totally disempowered, right?
Yeah.
So what are the tools that you can give someone when they're not feeling in their body? And that also goes postpartum too. I think it's harder to be postpartum than even partum, because with the bump, like there's a lot of fun things you can do with it.
Right.
And after you just feel like, what happened?
Yeah, totally.
You're like the wreckage of you.
Yeah, literally.
And then putting that back together. So yeah,
I definitely feel that way because when I was pregnant, I found that it was easier to just show my belly instead of hide it.
Yes.
It was so much easier to dress myself.
Totally.
I didn't have to buy any maternity clothes. So
that's amazing.
I only gained 15 pounds from a 10-pound baby, and then I gained 30 pounds after.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But that's because your body was like, what'd you just do?
I know, literally. And breastfeeding. There's so many things I didn't know about breastfeeding, but that's when I gained all my weight.
Information's piece I wish there was more out of.
Totally.
Wait, I have the weirdest... I've never said this publicly.
Oh my gosh.
With the breastfeeding of it, I would get each time like really swollen glands in my armpits. Because my doctor told me after that they're not visible, but I had like accessory nipples. So it was like my body wanted to produce all this milk like everywhere. And so to fix that, because you can't have that forever.
Yeah.
Like with each one, I would have to tape cabbage in my armpits and like just be at home with like Ace bandage and cabbage. And, like, it dries it up.
Yeah,
but I didn't want to put it here, so I had it like taped there.
Yeah.
We had like cabbage laid out everywhere, like frozen because you wanted it to be cold. And it would go away in like 2 days or whatever. But my husband was like, oh, back with the cabbage.
That's
like,
wild.
Nobody told me about that.
I mean, I've never heard of that.
I hadn't either. But then I guess it's a thing. I think I saw it on Friends or something when one of the guys had them somewhere.
That's wild.
It's funny though. You can't see them. Only like when your milk comes in.
Was it painful?
Yes.
Oh, I bet. Very. Yeah. Well,
and the mastitis too. I don't know if you ever had that.
I didn't have it, but did you get it in your lymph nodes or in your
No, because once that dries up, it's fine.
That's gone.
And
but
it's not like alien forever. But with the mastitis, like that's also a thing when you're run down. And I remember one time I got it and I was so relieved because I was supposed to bring the baby and go on like campaign shoot in like Georgia from New York. And I woke up with like 104 fever and I called the client and I was like, I can't get on the plane. And they tried to give me a hard time. And I was like, no, I actually like physically can't. And fixing that that's painful. But the other thing I did was in the breastfeeding of it. Oh my God. Because I'm always looking for like holistic like remedies. So I think,
totally.
I can't remember which kind of essential oil. I feel like I had read something helped with mastitis. I can't remember if it was peppermint or something, but you were supposed to, it was lavender. I forget. But I like rubbed it like all over my breasts. And then I thought I had wiped it off, but, and the baby was only like 4 weeks old or something. And I was feeding him after. And then I saw that he was like vomiting, and I Googled like ingesting essential oils, and it's like call poison control. And I freaked out, and I thought I had wiped it off, and they called me, and they're like, "Why would you give that to your baby?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't feed him.
It wasn't purposeful."
But yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's wild. So your breastfeeding journey sounds like a ride.
It was a ride.
Was it easier with each pregnancy, or it was just?
I loved breastfeeding. I didn't have any problem producing milk, which was very lucky because I'm small, but for some reason that worked out great. But it was, and I think I used it as a crutch. Like I kind of exclusively breastfed my daughter for at least 8 months, like on pumping too. I feel like with the guilt I had of having to work and with her, we didn't have any help. Like we would get like part-time babysitters, but I would just bring her to work all the time because I didn't want to admit that like I couldn't do it all. So I would and I was like, well, I'll only breastfeed because that means I'm like, if I have to work too, then like at least I'm doing that, you know?
Oh my goodness.
Matilda, I think I was breastfeeding her for like 18 months. With Jude, I stopped around 8 months. And it was because I had to go on a trip for work around 7 months. And we were shooting in the desert in Texas. It was like 104 degrees. And I was just in the van the whole time, like pumping. And I feel like I can do him better if I get some support.
Yeah. What kind of help do you have? Because
now we have a great nanny. Okay, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you
my
talk about bringing
is a partner in the true sense of that.
When you bring your kids on set, how does that work?
So it's funny. When they're super tiny babies, it's really easy.
Yes. Right.
I mean, not easy, but it's like very manageable.
It's manageable, yeah.
When they're little toddlers, that's like a nightmare. Like not advised. When I was working from home, like the most recent one, we would have a babysitter or a nanny helping us. But like if you're working at home, they come in the back and they're like, I'm in a fitting, and I like them around. So you're just trying to be both things. And then sometimes I'd have to kick them out if it was getting complicated. And my 4-year-old's like, but he is so fashionable. He'd come like in the back and he'd have like 4 belts and a hat, you know, and sunglasses on, and it was very cute. So, and I'm very open with everybody I work with that I'm a mom, and there's things that go with that. And if that's not for you, that's cool. But I want to work with people and partners that are aligned with that and that know that that's important to me.
Yeah, I love that.
Like if somebody wants to give me a hard time because of something with the kids, like we're not meant to work together, and that's okay.
Peace out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Do you bring your kids with you whenever you travel? I guess when they're
no. And now there's 3, so it's much more complicated. With 1, like it was much easier to do that. With 3, no. And I was talking with Rachel Zoe about this recently because she was asking me like, how do you do it? Like leaving and what does that feel? And obviously it's hard. And I figured out over the years that I think like 2 days you feel kind of good. It's like the plane ride is great. Like, nobody's bothering you. You can take a nap or watch a movie, maybe have a glass of wine. The night in a hotel, great. You take a bath. If you're traveling for work, you don't have to have dinner with anybody. You can just go do the work and then fly back. I find when it's longer than that, then it's like the guilt starts to seep in, and you feel like you're missing stuff, and you feel like a bad parent, and all those usual stories that we tell ourselves start to come back. But 2 days seems like it's not like you want to do that constantly, but it's more doable.
Yeah. I have my first work trip coming up where it's my longest. It'll be a week. And I'm just going to New York, but I'm already so anxious about it because we actually just did our first overnight with her. She went and stayed at grandma's last night.
Oh, wow.
So it was our first time with her staying over. It was great. But, you know, we got some sleep. Yes. Yeah. We got some sleep, but already just that one night, we were like, we missed her. We want her to come back. So I can't imagine how this trip is going to be.
She won't go with you to New York?
No. She has before, but not this time.
You'll be okay. It's going to be hard, but the other annoying thing is when they're babies and you FaceTime, it's not like they really are like engaging with you.
Yeah.
Or they get like bored and then somebody takes them away because they cry. And it's like,
I know.
But you'll be okay. You can do hard things.
Yeah. It'll be fine. I mean, it'll be nice to have a break too. So,
yes.
Yeah, that's
and
how
to
I
maybe
look at it.
Focus on you.
Yeah.
And what you like to do.
Yeah. I mean, especially once I stopped breastfeeding, I realized, man, I have so much more time.
Right?
You know?
I know.
So I'm curious, when did you get your first nanny? Because I know you said you had sitters.
So
but...
what we did, I didn't think I was going to get any help. I was crazy. I was just like, I could do it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe until
That's
she goes
Leo
to preschool.
energy. Yeah.
A little too can do. The first jobs I would have, like if I had shoots and stuff, I would get a baby nurse to come with me, and so like she was part-time and she would come, like we never had one at night, but she would like come on a job. She could hold the baby when I couldn't feed it or had to be like, being my work self. I think we finally got a nanny when Matilda was like 6 or 7 months old.
Okay.
And then she ended up not working out. And then we got someone more full-time when she was like 9 months old.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when that started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you had that same nanny till you moved out here?
No, because she got married and she was amazing. She got married and then we got another nanny and then we moved out here and it was COVID and we're like, we don't need a nanny or we can't have a nanny.
Oh my goodness.
And then we gone through a couple people here just because sometimes it's complicated finding.
I bet.
We also have weird jobs with like strange hours. It's not like we're 9 to 5 people.
Right.
Like, so we've found someone great who's really, most importantly, wants to be around the kids and likes them and has the same values of like, she doesn't yell at them. Like she lovingly listens or, I don't know. I think she's great. And all the kids are so different. Like Matilda's the kind of little girl, like if you tell her to do something, she can, like she knows how to manage their feelings in a way that's compassionate, which is important.
Yeah.
And then we have, if we're traveling, like, and so if I'm gone and Christian's at home with the kids, like we might need a babysitter to help on the weekends.
Yeah.
Although it just depends on the situation.
So with your feeding journey with Matilda, you exclusively breastfed.
I feel like I started supplementing formula with her around, I want to say like 15 months or something.
Okay.
And this is rough in my mind, but if I'm remembering correctly, I think we started supplementing then. Again, I produced a lot of milk, so I had like freezer full of milk.
Yeah.
But we started supplementing around 15, and I think I stopped breastfeeding around 18 months. With Jude, we started supplementing really early because it was just like so spread thin. And I think I started supplementing formula, like mixing it with breast milk around 4 months.
Okay.
And then with Hugo, in the first few weeks, I noticed he had really severe eczema. And Matilda has allergies too. She's allergic to eggs and nuts. Like at 7 months, she went anaphylactic when I gave her eggs.
Oh my goodness.
But she had like eczema issues. So I knew there was something going on. So with her, with breastfeeding, I cut out all eggs from my diet and all nuts, and because they did the allergen test on her. That was so scary though. I ran, our pediatrician in New York was like 2 blocks away, and her face was blowing up, and I just it was winter, and I didn't get a coat I like threw a blanket over her and just ran her there. It was so scary.
Oh my goodness.
She was okay, and we have her in an allergy program in LA now. Jude didn't have anything like that, rashes or anything. And then when Hugo was born, he had like severe eczema. It was so sad. He looked like he had like Freddy Krueger.
Oh.
And he was so beautiful, but his face was like, and so I just started cutting everything out of my diet. I couldn't figure it out. And the first work trip I had to do, he was like 4 months old. And it was in Italy. It was a big job. And because it was so long, my husband was going to bring him to meet me after like 4 days, because we had to go to Switzerland first and then Italy. But and there was a lot of milk at the house. We hadn't tried formula on him yet. And then it was like, Christian, before you take him on the plane, and maybe it's easier, like, can you try some formula on him at home? And he like broke out in like the craziest hives, and like he could hear his breathing like change. And we realized he was allergic to dairy. So like none of the formulas, we were like, what do we do? And we ended up getting like I think it's called HIP, right? Yeah. It's from Europe, but we had to do so much research. And I started listening a lot, and especially with Bobby, I listened to interview about that, and I was like, well, I should have known all of this before. I wasn't, because I was aware of like the sketchy formula marketplace and like the junk that's in so many of them. But when the options were like put in front of me, I was like, oh, well, there's not really anything great out there, especially if these are the issues that we're facing. Was
it difficult weaning for you?
No, I had this weird thing where I was like, had this abundant milk supply.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like for your milk supply, did the cabbage just dry it up?
I feel like when
quickly.
I wanted to wean, like once you start like supplementing and like you just kind of, there are moments in that process where I would like, you get that emotional response like, oh, like, is it ending? Because it is an emotional thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's times where I was like, oh no, I'm not ready. And I would like go back and start pumping more, whatever. I feel like the weaning, it kind of happens pretty like quickly if you need it to.
Yeah. We recently weaned off breastfeeding and my daughter will still try and get some, but I'm like, no, I'm sorry.
I think it depends on the kid though. Because like each of mine were different with how they would do that. And I found it to be like when they stopped trying, I was like, oh, you're not going to try anymore.
Yeah, right. I know.
But
when is that last time?
You
never know.
I know. Like all things.
I did want to touch on the industry in general and body positivity.
Yeah.
It's something that I've championed since the beginning of my career. And it's kind of sad to see because I feel like we're going through this regression where I feel like we've made a lot of progress. You know, Ashley was at the forefront and then,
totally.
you know, we had all these other newcomers come in, but it just seems like it's kind of stalled out. And
why do you think that is?
I mean, it seemed like it was just a trend for the time. You know, I think after COVID, so many things just changed. It just reset some things for the better, some things for the worse. And this was one of those. But I also believe the Ozempic drug, you know, it's taking the industry by storm and it's just becoming so accessible to everybody. Yeah. So I think that played a big part into it.
It's funny, like listening to that conversation. I think number one, tools that help you feel like your best self are great, but everyone should feel great with who they are. It's like it's complicated to tell someone like don't do that because that's not honoring yourself.
Yeah.
But also like it's a difficult conversation to have. In terms of body positivity, I hate the idea because I think so much of this entertainment world and the fashion world, little girls look up to what they see out there. And when they see themselves out there, and if they don't see anybody with a bigger or curvier or different shade or anything like themselves out there, then they don't believe that's possible.
Yeah.
So when that starts disappearing, they don't think that kind of story is either possible or even worthy of them to tell.
Yeah.
And that feels very problematic to me. I think with little girls, especially like in the responsibility that comes with raising girls and raising girls who want to engage with that possibility and that limitlessness in them. If the only thing that's good is if you're like fit, whatever that means, or like it makes a very small box of possibility. I would rather keep that possibility open. How do we change that? I think representation is key. Yeah. Without that, it's impossible to see that example.
I agree.
Even and like whether that's body positivity or mental health. Like I was speaking with a client about this, you know, and you look at what like Selena has done in terms of bringing that to the forefront and like making people proud to embrace all of themselves, whether that's all of your body or all of your mind or all of your potential. That's only possible when people are being vulnerable and brave enough to make it not good or bad. It's like we all are all of these things. So acknowledge it, put it out there. Yeah. I mean, like you have to keep doing what you have to do. You don't have to, but what like the work that you're doing and how you're doing it, and all these girls and women who look up to you and they relate to you. And I think I feel that responsibility too with the people I work with and the messaging that you put out there, because words matter and people look up to these images and these stories, whether we like it or not. So how do we use that?
Yeah, it's so true. Representation is so important. I always think back to this story of, it relates to quantum physics somehow. I don't know how, but how the first person who ran the 4-minute mile, it was deemed as totally impossible. And then this one person did it, and now so many people can run a 4-minute mile now. But when you see somebody who's in the forefront, who looks like you or who doesn't look like the mainstream, it makes it seem possible. It makes it tangible. It makes it within reach. So yeah, I think it's very important. And all we can do is show up and show out.
And listen.
Yeah.
Well, What was I just hearing? You can't spell listen without silent. Like, you have to be silent to listen. Where did I hear that? I liked it.
Yes, that's a good one. I've never heard that before.
Especially people get in the social media space. People get in the habit of shouting and putting it all out there, but even representation doesn't come without listening. Just putting stuff out there because like you think it matters is great, but like to be in a conversation, you have to listen.
Totally.
And to listen to what also all these girls, what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. And also know how to step away from that because some of them can get quite noisy.
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
Like the expansion, but also boundaries.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with me today, Erin. You were so vulnerable about your journey and your pregnancies, your postpartum journey, motherhood in general. And it was just so eye-opening. And I think it's really important that these conversations are had and brought to the forefront, you know? Yeah, I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for listening.
Yes. Please tell us where we can find you again.
You can find me at Erin Walsh Style. Mm-hmm. And I'm also writing a book that's coming
up. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's not announced yet, but the idea is I want to help us all figure out how to use what we wear to align with our very best selves. Oh. It's a practical guide of how to do that. So when you wake up and you're running late and you're like, what the F do I put on my body? I feel like garbage. I feel disempowered. I don't know what makes sense on this postpartum self. Then it's like, oh, do this plus this equals calm and relaxed.
I love
that. It's
like
soul style. So,
is that something we can look forward to next year?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Well, we'll be on the lookout. Yes. Well, I'm so excited for that.
Yeah. I think we need it.
Yeah, no, totally.
It's hard being a woman.
That'll be really cool.
It's hard being a mom and a woman, literally. And a partner and a business person.
All of that.
Inspiring or inspired.
That's
all those
really
things.
Cool. Yeah. I'm awesome. So happy for
Thank
you.
you so much.
And that's another episode of Milk Trunks.